Again, I want to introduce myself, David Mantica. I'm the VP and GM of SoftEd US. We are a business for-profit training company. We do a lot of this web seminar, free content stuff for you. So I'm glad you're joining. With us is Carla. She is our expert in Agile Facilitation, a safe SPC, does a ton of consulting work, currently doing some work with NASDAQ right now, which is really exciting. I'm going to pass it over to Carla, and she's driving the show.
Hi, David. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw you off a little bit because I actually wanted to put this in here for the team. It's a little bit interactive, but today we're going to talk about facilitation and then Agile facilitation specifically. I want you to leave here thinking about what tools, what techniques, why do I need Agile facilitation? What's the difference between Agile and facilitation? And then when you combine them together, what does that mean? Is that a thing? I'm excited about this because a lot of the ways that we work with transformations are how do you incorporate the agility methodology and mindset without making people feel like we're just going to do Agile. So it's kind of like we're doing as we're going and we're doing it together. So I'm going to start off with a quick little poll. I'm sending the link over to everyone. And this is a tool called Slido. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here. Okay. First question. This is that interactive portion and, trying to keep away from death by PowerPoint. What word comes to mind when you hear, oh boy, I got to fix the here, facilitator? What word comes to mind when you hear facilitator? Let me fix that here because otherwise I do think I'm a good speller. So I'm trying to.
Don't fix it. They don't mind. I saw Post-its. I saw Post-its and it went away. Come on.
Oh my God, that's horrendous.
I love Post-its.
Oh gosh.
And it's okay to be a facilitator. You perform well with Post-its.
There we go. I fixed it. Let me go ahead and.
Now you're going to show it to us again?
Yes. I feel better.
Leader, guide, coach, neutral, conductor, coordinator. You're digging some of this stuff, Miss Ramos?
Oh yeah. This is amazing.
Helper,
this is great.
Fixer.
Lubricant. Okay. Servant leader. Yep. Ooh, I like that. When it gets bigger like that, that means there's a lot of energy around that specific word.
Also the find in mind, by the way, you're gonna freak out. You see that?
Yes.
Just ignore it. We have somebody who help us. So these are some great stuff. I mean, moderator, servant leader, ringleader. I like the ringleader one.
Yeah. Lots of energy around servant leader, moderator, guide. And if you think about the correlation between Agile, and I know you would agree with this, David, but servant leadership and, coaching and guiding, these are all pretty much aligned with a lot of the methodologies, the principles, the core values in Agile. So I'm glad that we're doing this because you're naturally already seeing the relationship between the two. This was great. Host, neutral. How do we feel about this neutral stance? That's super, super important. Neutrality.
Give your thoughts on chat, by the way, and share with others. So you can certainly give your thoughts there.
Yeah.
No, Olivia did the ATF with you.
Hi, Olivia. Perfect.
All right. This is good. What's next on your hit parade?
Perfect. So what I want to show you next has to do with showing you some of the main reasons why we're taking this class, why I want to address this specific topic. Let me see. Slideshow. Okay, here we go. So these are some data points.
These are great points. I also think it's really hard to be a facilitator and do it right.
Yeah, definitely. And
Well, it's
coming
easy
into
to do it. It's hard to do it right. How about that?
it's hard to do it. And I had a leader tell me late last year, actually, she said, I the workshops and facilitation could be extremely powerful if done right. And that's the biggest thing is, yeah, anybody can have a workshop or anybody can say they're doing agile, but if you don't do it right, then it's not powerful. So let's talk about the future of work. And I'm sure you've seen this, with all of your webinars that you host is how do we understand what these macro trends, how they're driving, how they'll impact the global economy, right? And what's ahead and how will it impact us? Because this whole transition from post-COVID, I think we're all starting to find our stride again, but really some things are never going to go back and some things may, but not quite the same. So one of the things that we need to see here is leaders are saying approximately 30% novel ideas for improving performance. Why? Because we live in a new world where we're working remote, where we're working from wherever and at different times. And a lot of us hopefully have the flexibility of defining where we want to live. And that doesn't keep us from where we want to work, right? So these things are now at the forefront of leadership challenges because they're like, how do I make sure that I'm giving my employees that opportunity to choose where they want to live and work, but also improve performance? And I'll share some data behind that. Aligned with the organization's vision, we're going to talk from a tactical perspective, how that works from the leadership stance and how you as a potential facilitator or as an existing facilitator can do some of those things. Encourage and recognize suggestions for improvement, provide constructive feedback to employee challenges, share the challenges that the company is facing. David and I were talking about self-awareness as an organization and how key and vital it is when it comes to hosting and facilitating some of these workshops. And knowing where you are is probably one of the main challenging things from an employee perspective, from a leader perspective, all of those things. Take an active role in helping employees grow and removing roadblocks. I hope that resonates with some of the things that your leaders are assessing today. Let's see. So we talked about remote and hybrid work. Basically, hybrid work setups is where some of the work happens on site and some remotely. Those are likely to persist as far as the research I did, because organizations are trying to create this atmosphere where employees want to work. And one of the good things from the pandemic, and I know that sounds, I don't know, how does that sound, David? One of the good things from the pandemic, one of the silver linings.
Yeah, silver linings is a better way to say it for sure. Or just, learnings. I mean, within anything bad, there's going to be, good. And with anything good, there's going to be bad. And it's just how we, attack that and utilize the learnings that to make things better.
Yeah. And one of the things that, we need to adapt to is refining the operational models in response. How do we unlock sustainable performance and health in this whole hybrid world? How do organizations build strengths so that we can continue operating with this new model, whether it be fully remote, which now corporations or organizations are saying we're remote first, which is actually shown by the immense migration from New York to Miami. That's driving up our home prices here in Miami. But I digress. So we have these areas to unlock sustainable performance. We expand executives' focus on strategic clarity, coaching, and empathy. We talked about servant leadership a little bit. There's a lot of energy on that. The leading driver of performance and productivity isn't compensation or stretch goals, but rather the sense of purpose work provides to employees. And I know it's always like, really, if I make more money, then I'll have a better sense of purpose. But that's not what the data says. And I got this from McKinsey. It's really about intentional about your interactions, especially those that happen in person. You have to foster this outcome-based management of small cross-functional teams. All of the organizations I work with have an shared underlying challenge with, we are not aligned on a cross-functional level. And so this is both more about the human and the more effective as performance management practices shift from being about controlling employees' work to empowering and enabling teams and people to perform. Does that make sense so far?
Absolutely. Totally makes sense.
Okay, I can't see the comments, David, so I'll have you stop me.
I got all the comments. So far, you're
Okay.
good. No
Okay.
additional comments. But again, I'm driving that for you. You keep driving. If you have
Okay.
thoughts or feelings, folks, don't hesitate to share.
And we're going to dive deep into invest in reskilling. I'm going to show you, and this is not all Carla, has a research team. No, I went out and all of the customer development interviews that I run and all of the training classes that I do, and even with client work. And then in addition to, World Economic Forum and additional sources, I'm able to gather all of these things here. So we're going to dive deep into invest in reskilling. What kind of skills should you be investing in? Increase collaboration. We talked about that. But the way that we increase collaboration, that's, finding high ways to optimize ways to collaborate. No, that sounds kind of crazy, but it can help define a model to increase how quickly your organization can discover and adopt better models of collaboration. So, do workers need an informal, confidential channel for banter guidelines or making hybrid meetings more effective? If we're being intentional about designing these interactions and communicating expectations and working norms, that's when you have that alignment and that increase in collaboration, which I think you can resolve with workshops and less meetings, but that's just me. And finally, increasing the rate of technology adoption. It's imperative. Companies are seeking out new tech and use of data to optimize their results and make better decisions. So these are the 5 areas that will unlock a sustainable performance. Let me dive right into very cool model here. So we all know the new paradigm, right? And the methodology behind Agile. So this is the traditional pyramid, and the trends describe how dramatically organizations are changing and employees work, right? So what was, or what still is, the dominant organizational paradigm from the last 100 years now is showing this, agility, or I know it rhymes with stability, but really it's all about the paradigm that achieves the balance between change and stability. And that paradox is what truly agile organizations master. They're both stable, but then they're also dynamic. I know we're always talking about agile as move fast and fail quick, and but there's a word, stability, that often gets overlooked. And agile organizations, agility rhymes with stability. That's just all I'm just trying to keep it in your heads in case you're a listener. You learn by listening. Agile organizations mobilize quickly. They're nimble. They're empowered to act and make it easy to act. And they're like a living organism, like all of these little square circles within the bigger circle. You can kind of imagine them as solutions teams, or, if you want to choose a framework, you can say Scrum teams. And it's really just, if you've ever read the book, Turn the Ship Around. Have you read that book, David?
No, I have not, but I've heard it referenced many times. I've heard people speak around it.
Very, very cool. It's how
Yeah.
they managed to incorporate Agile in the Navy, which...
Oh, the big thing about that too is how you lead when you're not an expert. So much of us want to lead and be the expert, right? And then facilitation, you can't. It's about empowering the experts in the room to come up with the solutions.
Exactly. We're usually, and this is something that we all need to, as facilitators, have to manage, is we're usually the ones that know the least, because the subject matter experts are all around us. But we do have that eagle eye view, and our expertise, as you mentioned, is extracting all of that and creating a visual representation of it. It's pretty powerful. So from what I've seen, these are 5 trademarks of Agile organizations. I know all of us are on our own journey, and I know some of us call it Agile and, big A versus little a, but these are trademarks that I find and ultimately the strategic themes that I like to feed into when helping with an Agile transformation. So David mentioned NASDAQ. These are very specific strategic themes that I'm incorporating within NASDAQ or hoping to incorporate. And those would be my specific metrics for success. So let's get to it. I am, let's see, North Star embodied. This goes into a little bit more detail, but I want to make sure we have enough time to actually do the work. Let's see here. I'm going to skip through these and I can go into them into further detail. More data. Employee satisfaction and turnover. I was really surprised by this data. 41% of enterprise employees have left or are considering leaving their jobs due to poor collaboration tools. This is from the World Economic Forum. I'm happy to share the link for reference. 64% of employees claim that poor collaboration is wasting at least 3 to 5 hours of productivity per week. You think that's accurate, David? That's a lot of money.
I think it might be more.
Yeah. And
I think it might be more. Just really think about, take a snapshot in your mind of what happened last week as it relates to meetings, and then look at, all right, how much of that meeting did you really get value?
Yeah.
And then how much of that meeting then affected your ability to feel like you were contributing? And then on top of that, where's your purpose? And do you feel like you're aligned with the purpose? I mean, this is part of the efficiency and productivity gap that we all have to be thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point with leadership, 78% of employees claim their company's leadership could be doing more to promote collaboration within the organization. This is a pretty outstanding number. So I want to stop sharing and I want to see if maybe we can gauge the attendees and the folks that are joining us.
Yeah, so far Anthony talked about sustainability as a key word in the conversation. Then Anthony talked about the fact that great collaborators can lead to teams having both the knowledge and agency to move quickly and with quality. So I think, the facilitator, you got that team, you can make that team move so much faster and be so much more productive. Going back to that slide, purposefulness. If I'm productive and I feel purposeful, and the facilitator helped me do that, there's a ton of power in that. So what are other folks' thoughts, comments?
Specifically around these numbers, let me make sure I bring it up again.
I also don't think when we talk about facilitation, I think facilitators can do a better job of inspiration. Being inspirational to get folks to understand the purpose of why you're meeting and the power that this is going and the power that this will create to move things forward faster and with higher quality. I mean, that's certainly something that I see as well.
Yeah. And one of the main things is, we talk about leadership, and sometimes in the middle layer, in the management layer, or, directors or, managers, they're kind of in a position where, well, what can I do? And this is where a lot of the facilitation can occur. If you're in a program level, if you're in a more traditional organization, or maybe even a safe organization, you're at the program layer or the value stream layer. This is where a lot of the facilitation occurs. And even at the Scrum solution layer, I know I'm getting more technical, but let me go on to top skills of 2025. This is, hold on one second. Let me erase this. Okay. These are the top skills that clients and employers both are looking for when it comes to individuals. And these analytical thinking and innovation, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, or originality and initiative, and reasoning, problem solving, and ideation. I got these from a course that I'm taking with AJ and Smart on facilitation. And these are some of the key things that you can work on through facilitation, through learning how to do powerful facilitation, agile facilitation for me. Does this resonate with you, David? Any of these?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the key thing that resonates completely is the complex problem solving and creative thinking analysis. And I talk through on core skills about how we're losing the creativity analysis because of our just-in-time soundbite filled world. So, I mean, that building that skill is so important going forward based on the adaptive challenges we're going to face. So here's a question, Carla, that came up is, what about dealing with conflict or differences of opinion? Does Agile have a framework for that?
A framework for dealing with conflicts?
Yes.
So I wouldn't say it's a framework, but I would say that it's okay. So Agile is a methodology. And then underneath Agile, there are dozens of frameworks. Scrum being the most popular one, SAFe gaining traction, gaining steam because of, the scaled Agile aspect of things. Within those, if you are using one of the Agile methodologies, then you're also adopting the Agile core values and principles. And that's what we had talked about when we did the poll with facilitation, is one of the key things is servant leadership. So to deal with conflict, I'm going to teach you some techniques now. Glad that you brought that up. It was Lara, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how facilitation works and how the mind works. When we're trying, if you don't understand these type of things, then, it's kind of a foundational aspect of it. So let's talk about the messy middle. This is the idealized model developed in 1956. Okay. This talks about the biggest part of our job as facilitators is just making sure that the teams work together as effectively as possible, right? And so we're understanding how groups generally work together. And it's critical to address the misunderstandings that exist about how groups make decisions. This is to your question, Lara. So before we address those misunderstandings, let me explain the decision-making process a bit easier. We have the concepts of divergent and convergent thinking, right? And so when it comes to creative problem solving and essentially any decision-making process, there's those two types of thinking that people engage in: divergent and convergent, right? In theory, the group would generate and explore a diverse set of potential solutions to the problem or challenge presented, right, in the divergent zone. And then next is this messy middle right here, right? And then we would just bypass, create choices and make choices, and ideally a solution. We know there's constraints throughout, but the goal would be to just go straight there. So that would be in theory. Okay. You explore a diverse set of potential solutions to the problem or challenge, and then you move on to the convergence zone. So the realistic decision-making model and why facilitation is so powerful is because the idealized version is just an oversimplification. And so when the change from diverge to converge is presented as a simple immediate switch, that's not how the human brain works. So moving directly from diverge ideas to convergence and deciding what to do, it just means that the group does not properly contemplate and understand ideas. So if this happens, the group won't have the understanding of all the members, right? And they can't make the best decisions possible. So something big happens between the divergent and convergent zones that groups and facilitators need to be aware of. And this grown zone, this is where the facilitator thrives, right? So this is a framework that allows facilitators to better harness a group's collective intelligence, right? The diamond is just a visual representation of the different stages. that the team has to move in order to create participatory creative decision making. I'll stop here because I spoke a lot. Any questions?
No, so far, let's see.
Okay, perfect. So this is the business as usual. This is where the group comes up with obvious solutions to a standard problem, right? And good facilitators can help them to break out of the business as usual zone and move into the divergent zone, right? When you get to zone 2, the divergent zone, people have more freedom to explore and generate multiple solutions to the problem at hand. That's a really exciting stage in the process as a group, because we're searching for possibilities and we're brainstorming potential paths to move forward. And so good facilitators can also help people express their thoughts and opinions clearly. They can engage, in active listening and using questioning techniques. And the groan zone, what I'm referring to as that messy middle, the groan zone and messy middle are used interchangeably. And this is that potential tedious part of the journey that can lead to fresh thinking and innovative ideas. So what I'm saying, David, is that in this groan zone is where the innovation occurs.
Mm-hmm.
In this looming recession, innovation is probably key to making sure that you are adapting and adjusting to this new economic landscape.
That groan zone, boy, we all feel it. And the thing that's challenging with the groan zone as it relates to facilitation is if people are too hot. If people are too hot, the project's too if they aren't given time to think, and then they don't want to even participate in that groan zone because it makes them feel like there's overhead. I can't get my job done. I don't want to listen to all this stuff. And so there's a big challenge in our complex and complicated environments in that zone because of being too busy.
Yep. So you have the team that expresses all their point of view, and then often, that's where the conflict arises, because now we're misunderstanding each other's perspectives. So yeah, welcome to the groan zone. This is where the team normally gets stuck, and then they abandon projects prematurely. And it's also where collaboration breaks if the group is not guided or supported through to the next zone. It's similar to the storming stage in Tuckman's. So it's no surprise that people want to avoid this zone. Naturally, people want to avoid conflict. It feels uncomfortable. So people go on tangents and they lose track of the central theme, and they try to sabotage ideas or each other, and it feels like things are spinning out of control. So this is where true facilitation occurs, because it's inevitable part of the decision-making process, and most of the growth occurs in that zone. So as a facilitator, we're tasked with supporting people to understand each other's perspectives. So I think, Lara, you were mentioning about leadership. When you have a participatory leadership stance or participatory leadership role within these specific stages, right? That's where you get that leadership alignment. That's where a lot of the shared understanding will
And
lead.
Laura loved the groan zone, man. And she loved the explanation.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Finally, then you have the convergence zone. Everyone is on the same page. Now discussions are flowing better. Everyone starts to feel like they're making progress again. Now the group starts to narrow down the ideas. Now everything becomes more feasible and we can decide on a path forward together. The facilitator helps prioritize their ideas using ranking techniques. And, we'll talk about those shortly.
And we do have a question, though, here about how does Carla suggest to have an excellent facilitation technique or tips in the role of a Scrum Master? So do we want to hold that off and talk when you get to the tips and technique section?
Well, keep me honest if I don't bring it up next.
Okay, great.
I think I will, but keep me honest on that one. Then finally, the closure zone, the facilitator is responsible for guiding the team and making that decision. It has to be clear to everyone what the decision embodies and how everyone supports it. And that is a very realistic representation of how group make decisions together. So that's, back to the importance of facilitators to understand this process and expect and survive that messy middle. if they are facilitated well, of course, and understanding the dynamics of group decision making. That's a core competency for facilitator. So if you're ever facilitating a workshop, make sure that you show this and make sure you set expectations as to this is what we're going to go through. So, put on your seatbelts, lay back and, be a part of the ride because it's inevitable. Well, this is same thing, but I do want to talk about 4, I want to say stages, maybe. Phases. We do a lot of these preparation, right? There's these phases, pre-workshop, then there's a workshop delivery and post-workshop. Most of my work in any workshop happens in phase 1. This is where you are onboarding people, you're getting expectations, you're able to set expectations, they're able to help you design what it is that you're trying to solve for. And there's very specific techniques and tools. We'll go over them now as a high level. Phase 2, by the time you get here, this is just delivering what you did in workshop, in the planning and the design phase. And then finally, post is just the full circle. What did we build? How are we measuring? And what did we learn? That's where the agility component comes into play. Let's see. So I like this graph because it talks about all of the zones and the 4 C's. Here, as I mentioned, collect is something that all you're doing is collecting everybody's feedback, the experts. Remember how I talked about you're sometimes or many times the person that knows the least in the room, and that's the way it should be. You're bringing in all these experts. Let's get that out and create a visualization of what these experts are telling us. Why are we having this workshop? Who needs to be in the workshop? Design the agenda based on the goals of the workshop. What are the concerns that everybody has? What are the intrinsic challenges that they're not telling you about? Because no one will ever tell you what their real underlying challenge is. So the agenda must be strong, but it must be adaptive, right? Because it needs to emerge with the realities of the group, and we don't know what we don't know. And then finally, when you run the workshop, you're doing choose and create. So ultimately, you're choosing things to focus on. You're choosing some of the challenges that you want to try to resolve for, and then you're creating paths forward. Let me see, do a little time check. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, let me see what comes next.
And again, questions. And folks love that slide. So there was some interest in that one for sure. But this is good. The 3 phases of a successful workshop.
Yes. This is where I get the nitty gritty. The nitty gritty. Let's talk about the phases. Oh, I'm getting a weird.
Yeah, you're writing.
Yeah. What's up with that? Hold on. Pre-workshop. There we go.
Yep.
Pre-workshop. This is that onboarding aspect, right? Where we talked about, do you remember, I don't know who told me this, but there's a book that I haven't read yet. And I know people are going to be like, you haven't read that? It's called The Art of War. Is it The Art of War?
Know your enemy and, understand how to,
Yeah. You're always going to have you're going to have, and I was talking to my team about this earlier, you're always going to have detractors and enablers, right? You're going to have people that have been burned by calling something agile. You're going to have people that have been burned by waterfall. You're going to have people with really strong opinions, or maybe they're just really bitter. And all of that, as an external facilitator, right? Or as someone that's coming in with a neutral, unbiased stance, you just want to be in this listen, collect, and you're trying to see what it is that you're learning from what they're going through from their perspective, but you're also trying to maintain that neutral stance. This is what I call the onboarding process in the pre-workshop. I want to make sure that I try to get all of their expectations and then slowly try to sort of, because a lot of facilitation has to do with emotional intelligence, and it's a muscle that you have to continue building over time. But really the overall onboarding is, let's talk about what your challenges are, because they may be very different from the person that's bringing you in to do that facilitation. Why are those your challenges? And again, always looking for that extrinsic challenge that they're telling you. Is that a word, extrinsic?
I'm not sure.
Extrinsic?
Intrinsic, and we have to look that up. Let's keep moving forward, though. It's good.
All right.
They know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
It's okay to make up a word occasionally.
And then comes the intrinsic challenge that they're. I'll give you an example. I had a client once say, we don't have strategic themes. We don't know what our OKRs are at the portfolio level. This is for a scaled agile organization. We just haven't come up with them. And I was like, okay, so what's the vision? Well, our vision is this. And I'm like, has that evolved post-pandemic? And they're like, And then we started looking at the user, how the user had evolved from the customer and how they were no longer the same people. So now we're starting to look at a different vision, because now your vision has evolved with your new user, right? So these things happen a lot. Excel is a really good example that I like to bring up. Excel started off for engineers. It was a product that was built for engineers. Now tell me one person who doesn't use Excel in this world. I think my 10-year-old's already learning Excel. So, I mean, Google Sheets or whatever equivalent, but that's an example of your user and your customer evolving and you having to evolve with them, or even faster than they do. So going back to that pre-work, divide and conquer, like Alexander the Great. Make sure that you get everybody's input. People just like to talk. They want to talk about their challenges. They want you to hear them. They want you to take note of them, right? I'm not sharing, but I will now. Oh, people want to see the slide. I thought they.
Yeah.
Okay.
The information's important.
Yeah. Agreed. Visual. Oh, not this one.
The interesting thing about that whole aspect of divide and conquer and learn, the key, I think, is figuring out when to let them pontificate and when not to let them pontificate, right? So, but you can't just stop someone from pontificating. At some point, you have to give them a platform by which they can speak, whether it's one-to-one, whether it's one in a smaller group. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so tempting to have your opinion, because you're coming
we all have them.
Yeah, we all have them, and it's so vital not to share as a facilitator.
Yes.
To make sure that you're as neutral and objective as possible. Where you can have an opinion is when you're being objective, when you have data to back it up. We know that this is not working, so let's talk about ways to move forward. And you can also have an opinion where there's tremendous amount of energy around something specific. Now you know that those are things that, even if the leader says, well, servant leadership is not important to me. Well, apparently it's very important to the rest of the group here. So, that's where you need to emphasize when the masses say one thing. So we've done the pre-work. Now the facilitator is ready to prepare for the group's journey together. And it's important that we set up a physical or virtual space correctly, right? Making sure that everything is always visible. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. There are 4 checklists, right? We want to make sure we start strong. Let me see what's after this. Okay. Start strong. We set and get expectations. I'll give you an example of not setting and getting expectations of a disaster.
There we go. We love stories.
Okay. So when I'm no names whatsoever.
No, of course not. No names.
Yeah, everybody was preparing for this workshop. We had attendees from all over the world. It was their strategic alignment session on a quarterly basis. It was going to be amazing. They have a lot of people coming and wanting to see each other in person for the first time, right? And I was not delivering this workshop. Let me know. But I have made my own mistakes. And everybody had these unsaid expectations because they didn't do an onboarding for it. And so you can almost visualize a balloon, and everybody's coming in with a filled balloon. And they're all like, yeah, let's get this done. They start the workshop. They start the facilitation aspect. They skip the sailboat exercise that I will show you next. And they go right straight to, this is our challenge. Now let's start working from our challenge. What do you think happened there? There's no wrong answer, but.
Let's see. Any thoughts on what's wrong with that?
What do you think happens when you're coming in?
People don't feel comfortable, safe, comfortable to share. A disaster is one other thought.
Yeah. Yeah. People are coming in and they're just like, you're telling us what the problem is. Especially if you're leadership. You're going to tell it. We're in the day-to-day. We're speaking to our customers. We're the ones that have the user interface. And you are coming down and telling us, and even in the best organizations with the best intentions, in the end, the leadership should be going by what you're telling them, right?
Zero participation, another one. All
Zero
ties to what you're saying. Yep.
You get people going like this, and they're like,
oh,
well,
yeah.
You're going to tell me, So that set and get is so important because it allows people to diffuse the balloon. Okay, I'm glad we're going to talk about this. I'm getting expectations from you the same way I'm setting expectations, but I'm getting them first. So let me go back to sharing my screen. I'm also going to give you some ground rules, some that I come with as better practices, but some that you are going to tell me as a team rule, right? That we're establishing together. And then I'm going to set you up with, I have some control over this. So I'm an elder millennial, just not quite pulling the wagon of the millennial, but almost pulling the wagon. So I like paper. So I print out an agenda and I put it in everybody's space. And that way they feel that they have a sense of control, knowing when lunch breaks are or when breaks are, sort of feeling like, okay, I know what's happening here. I'm out of control in other areas, but I feel like we have a structure and I know what to expect. So, and then we do a warm up, which, could be in the form of an icebreaker, but all these things are key, right? And in setting and getting expectations, I'll show you how that works. Then we do the workshop core, which I had shown you before with the divergent and convergent zones: collect, choose, create, and commit. And then we end strong with specific action steps and ownership and key highlights so everyone can visualize it and we all agree on that's what it is. And finally, all the cool stuff, my favorite, all your materials, your Post-its, your dots. I use Elmo. My team, if they're listening, they're going to be laughing because Elmo is a little doll. Everybody knows Elmo, right?
Not everybody. Come on, we got lots of international people here.
Elmo from Sesame Street.
Elmo from Sesame Street. Isn't he red or green? What color is he in? Red?
He's red. And the good thing about Elmo, you buy yourself a 10-inch Elmo, and he stands for excellent. Let's move on. And so if you manage to create a safe space as a facilitator through your icebreaker and through starting strong, then you grab your Elmo and you throw it at each other. Excellent. Let's move on. This has gotten so much fun. Even the CEO is like, throw me Elmo, just throw me Elmo, or you lift it up. If people feel uncomfortable, you just lift up Elmo. So it's just a lot of fun. Remember that one. Excellent. Let's move on. And it's a 10-inch Elmo. You buy it on Amazon or support your local, but yeah. So you have the 4 facilitator checklist, and I mentioned the collect, choose. Hold on. I'm going to share again. Collect, choose, create, and commit. Hold on 1 second.
We do have a question as you're going for it. Can we do facilitation informally, verbally gathering the team in the room rather than formally checking a workshop, printing materials, etc.? What's your thoughts on that?
Can you do, okay.
So you're informally, like, I'm going to bring the team together. Hey, team, let's get together. I want to talk through 15, 20 minutes of stuff.
There's a method to this madness. I mean, I don't know about the informal formal. I can tell you there are things that we can do, and I'll show you them now
Yep.
in Miro, but the facilitator should be in control 100% of the time so that everybody else around can be in innovation and creativity mode.
So bringing people together really isn't facilitation. It might be more information sharing. So if you're going to do informal gatherings, it's more like an information session, because there's no structure. So why am I doing this? Right? It's like, what's going on? I mean, maybe it's like you're breaking the cadence of the team.
Right. Right.
And Aaron says, do you have authority or influence to get the group in the room? That's a great point. If you don't, getting that started is the difficult part. I really think it's very difficult to do facilitation informally because, basically it should be just an information transfer or maybe some coaching.
Yeah. When you run the workshop, and who was it that asked about the
That's
decision making?
Was that?
Who was it that asked about decision maker in the group?
Aaron said, well, if you're going to do this informal thing, then it probably makes sense to have the authority or influence to get the group in the room. Like the only person who could do that would be someone who has got leadership.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will tell you one thing. When you have the participants in the room, one of the things, and I'm giving you a glaze over facilitation. There are, so many tools and techniques. When you have participants, you have to have an ultimate decision maker, and that's not the facilitator. So in my case, it could be the CEO, or it could be a VP of product if what we're running is a product strategic alignment, or it could be the head of sales if it's a sales enablement. The point is you always have a decision maker. That person is the one that holds the ultimate, but you also want to set up the space and the ground rules at the beginning of the workshop to allow for the flow and prevent the disruptions, and make sure that you're, asking the participants to get out of the workshop what they need, because this is a working session, right? And we need to focus our attentions on that.
So really, yeah. So the question was informal facilitation. I don't think there is an informal facilitation.
No.
I mean, it's just because that's going to be, hey, I'm bringing some folks together to talk about something.
Yeah.
And we got about, before to lead questions, you have about 7 minutes left, 6 minutes left. How would you like to use that time?
Okay. So I want to pose a really quick overview of what I've done. This is an organization where the example that I had mentioned, they had lost track of their vision because it had evolved during the pandemic. And as we started adding more capabilities and features to the product, the product started evolving. And now the users are no longer the customers. So now we're getting a different type of customer. So it's kind of like, actually, this is a really good example. Do you have small kids or grandkids? Like children?
Not me. No, not me yet. Not yet. So just say in general, say if you have small kids, here's the example.
You have small kids. Yeah.
I have them.
Yeah. So when you have small kids, especially now, you have ABC mouse, right? Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that what they're getting is something constructive so that, it's not some brain mush, right? ABC mouse is excellent. I'm giving it as an example because my 5-year-old uses it. So we have ABC mouse. Who's the customer? Who's the customer of ABC mouse, David? Who do you think?
ABC mouse. What is ABC mouse?
It's a child's learning.
Okay, so the customer is going to be two things: the adults who want to buy it for their kids, and then the kids who use it. So you have the buyer, and then you have someone who actually uses it.
Yeah. So you have the user.
They answered it for me. I'm sitting there. What? You're getting a lot of answers.
The parent is the customer.
The buyer. Yeah.
Because they're the ones paying for it. Yep. So you have to keep them satisfied. But you have your user, which is the one that you mainly have to keep, because if they're not using the product, they're not going to want to use it, right?
Yeah, the parents are going to say, this is a dud, man. It didn't give me 5 minutes to piece. They stopped using immediately, and I couldn't
Yep. Or look, my kid's not getting anything out of this. I have no data of how they're progressing, So now you have two customers. So here we talked about company vision. What are the goals? How do we measure success? This is what we set out to do. What are the issues we need to address? What are the key strategic initiatives? And we need to measure the impact of the strategic initiatives. So the way we did that is I gathered this during onboarding, by the way, and this was really powerful as a level set. I think it was Lara that mentioned what happens when leadership is not, aware of the situation. This was their team sharing with me as an external facilitator. This is what's happening, whether leadership knows it or not. And so what I did was I reworded these to these. Okay. Our cross-functional teams find it hard to align on common business objectives. We are aligning our cross-functional team with common business. You see what's happening? It's a transition into a mindset and very much an agile mindset. So here we start incorporating the agility aspect. So remember how I mentioned set and get expectations? You come in and let's set up a Kanban board. Let's set up a Kanban board. Free for all. We saw each other. Now I know how tall you are. Now, I see your style. Tell me, what are you expecting? And so here we start adding all of these items on deck, right? I called it on deck because we're on a journey together. So we're technically on a ship. And these are all anonymous. Up until this point, I love the anonymity of this.
Anonymity. Yeah, that's good. Good try. That's good.
Because we don't know each other's handwriting.
Yeah.
So we're getting alignment on what's a common theme. But then you're going to be like, hey, Carla, there's so many stickies. How are you going to do this? Okay. After we do this alignment, let me go back really quick. There's something called straw poll voting. And you grab little dots, and then now you have the whole group come together. You give them a set of dots and you say, tell me which ones you agree with. You only have 3 dots. Vote. So now you're voting, and now I'm able to extract, I guarantee it'll probably be 4, 5, or 6 where all the energy is. Some of them are duplicated, so I duplicate them. And then we put them in a challenge map. And I want to show you what that looks like, David, because I want to make sure everybody gets a nice taste of things. So let me bring this up. Did I stop sharing?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So I have 2 monitors. That's why I never know. So after we've developed our overall, set and get expectations, then you're going to go into, this is, if you were doing a remote session, by the way, this is how you would do it. You do a challenge map and you start putting everything into how might we's. So you have everything visualized. These are all of our challenges. These are the ones these are the top 5 or 6 we're going to address. Now we're going to write down how might we solve for these. So we're working together alone, which is one of the, back to why there's a method to the madness. We're going to work together alone. You're not going to talk to each other. We're going to be in the same room, but you're working by yourself to decide how might we solve for these specific challenges. And then you're going to do a challenge map and add them to a specific category. And everything is time boxed with a timer and with Elmo. I hope to show you this in the future, by the way, but I don't know, David. And then here, once we categorize the how might we's, see how we're shifting the challenges into how might we solve for these? It's super powerful. I'm just crazy about it. And then we start off with different powerful questions. We achieve our vision by. You see, these are specific activities. Now we have everybody looking at where the energy lies. The leaders are engaged. They're trying to listen to their experts if they're good leaders. And this is where I had a subject matter expert interview. And the subject matter expert interview is, you've all had a chance to share. You've all had a chance to give us everything you feel. Let's hear from the people that make your decisions every day or that lead the team. So this is where we had a subject matter expert. By the way, this robot that you see here, David, he is one of the leaders. He wasn't present. So they had a robot.
I saw those robots. Yeah, they use them in school too.
So cool.
So we got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
Yes,
2 minutes.
And we
A
do want to
ton-
leave any questions, folks, please chat them in. We can grab those questions. We got 2 minutes left. What would you like to cover? And can
And
you
then-
increase the size of your screen, by the way?
Oh,
That would
I'm
be
a
great.
presentation. Sorry. So this one is one really, really fun one. I drew a sailboat. I know you can't see it there. What you want to ask the team is, what is the wind propelling us forward? And you put them all at the top. And then what is the anchor holding us back? What are the anchors holding us back? And you see these little dots? This is where most of the energy lies. That's how you know what you need to focus on as a group. You're not going to be able to solve the world, but you can grab the ones that have the most pressing attention, if that makes sense. This is another one that you can do. And
Can you give a couple of Scrum Master techniques and tips real quick that we're getting that question back again?
Thank you for keeping me honest. This one is a fun one. Scrum Master techniques. You want to use, and I shared this in our last session, which I think a lot of people were surprised. Go into Miro, and you go into Miroverse. Let me see. You see this little thing here, Miroverse? And then you click in here, you can say either retro, or you can say workshop. You could put basically anything, and it'll give you a ton of tools, of evolving different things. I use a lot of these. User story mapping. They're already really well designed. Salesforce has some really good ones that are published.
Can you increase the size of the screen a bit more? At all possible?
Yes. I can zoom in, but is that helpful?
I would zoom in then. Yeah.
Zoom in.
There
So
you
you
go.
choose any one of these, and then you can literally a design workshop, and you can literally just go around the template and then use a template, and then it'll literally just build it for you. So this is a really cool technique for the Scrum Master that asked that question to keep your team engaged. And, facilitate your sessions or your ceremonies in a workshop matter. And that's it. Oh, most important thing you get out of my webinar today, this is how you pull the sticky. That is how you pull the sticky. Not like this, not like that. Because then you have this.
The bend.
It's a slide. There you
As
go.
close to that top as possible, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Most value added today.
All right. Any other questions before we let folks go? Kevin teaches the same approach to Post-its. Yes, that's exactly right. We got to thank you, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I'm dying to hear what people thought.
Great this webinar. And we'll share the slides out for folks as well, plus the recording, so you can dig into that too. Certainly on it relates to techniques. We can, if you want to email me, yeah, Adrian, we're gonna send out the deck, the recording, and the PDU claims in about a day or two.
Yep.
So thank you all very much for participating. And then Carla, I'll let you go, as I got to jump into another meeting.
All right. We'll make it a workshop.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
See you. Thank
Look
you,
at that,
David.
inspired her. You inspired Rebecca. That's great. Talk to you
That's
later.
awesome.